Hi, this is Rick from For Community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. Not long ago, maybe about 5 years, I was leading a youth group and I had some really great guys who were volunteering with me. And we used to play a game with the teens called sock wrestling. And I loved sock wrestling, one of my favorite games. Guys would take off their shoes, they'd have to stay on their hands and their knees, and then they'd attempt to remove a sock from another guy who was in the ring with them. There's a group of guys in the ring, and the winner was the last person in the ring with both of their socks still on. As soon as the sock came off your foot, you were out. Loved the game. I challenged my youth leaders to have a sock wrestling match among ourselves. And let me tell you, we were all nice guys, still nice guys, sacrificing for the teens, showing up, giving our best, with our hearts on our sleeves. But man, sock wrestling is its own animal, and we changed into animals. For a brief moment in time, nothing else mattered to us at all except getting another guy's sock. Our socks became the most important thing in the universe, and we acted like it. We went to war with each other and totally forgot how good-natured we actually were. Man, that was a blast. I wish I could have another sock wrestling match with my friends again. Anyways, what about you? What competition do you engage in where you get so focused on the win that you forget how nice a person you usually are? If you got a story, please pause the video and share it with whoever you're watching with. This video is based on my interpretation of James chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. In this passage, we learn something about how our behavior is shaped by what we value. James chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. What is causing quarrels and fighting among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you? You want what you don't have, so you scheme and kill to get it. You're jealous of what others have, but you can't get it. So you fight and wage war to take it away from them. Yet you don't have what you want because you don't ask God for it. And even when you ask, you don't get it because your motives are all wrong. You want only what will give you pleasure. You adulterers, don't you realize that friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God? I say it again, if you want to be a friend of the world, you make yourself an enemy of God. Here's a point I'm going to try to make in this video. Our behavior follows our values. I think it's a really good idea just to slow down for a moment, catch our breath, de-escalate about this text. This is not a war cry. It's not toxic confrontation. It's not fuel to get people into fights, dividing lines, hardliners about some kind of issue. That is not what this text is. First thing that's jumping out to me about the text is how important it is to understand the context. It may not mean what you think it means. I mean, the text says friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God. Like, well, man, that's pretty aggressive, polarizing language. That's drawing a line in the sand, saying this far and no farther. That's like Gandalf. You shall not pass, fighting the Balrog. That's all or nothing dichotomous thinking. And if I heard someone in one of my therapy sessions use that, I may jump into CBT and challenge that a little bit. There is something important being communicated in this text, but it may not be as overly militaristic as it sounds. For me to understand this text, I need to keep in mind that the author has tunnel vision. It's got a very narrow scope for what he's actually targeting. Specific context. If we lose the context, we lose the meaning. There are truly good parts of this world. This world, God's creation, was declared as good by God. God commanded us to spread out and multiply as one of the earliest instructions he gave people. Go and multiply across this good earth and engage with it. We read through the Bible that God wants to bless us and not hurt us. And we see some passages letting us know that God is interested in giving us the desires of our hearts, which are all from the world. This text is in no way redeclaring something that God has already declared as good. The world is good. Creation is good. There is a very narrow vision here that I need to keep in mind to to make this context make sense to me. The narrow scope of this has to do with our heart, our allegiance, our commitment that we've made to follow something as the primary purpose of our life. It's really about values. What do we value? This isn't actually about planet Earth and going to war against the world, because if we don't, we're not friends of God. It's not at all. It's about our heart. So this text is about matters of the heart, namely what we value and our commitment to pursuing that value. Here are two primary concerns this text is really drawing my attention to. The first concern is our love for others. The text says, "What is causing the quarrels and fights among you? Don't they come from the evil desires at war within you?" Okay, for me to keep this in context, it's easiest to remember the greatest commandment that Jesus gave us, and that would be to love God and love others. The text begins around the theme of how we treat others. And what the text is pointing out is the evidence of a lack of love for others. There's a lack of love toward others because there's something wrong with the heart. Our values are off. The really big deal is found in the second thing the text focuses on. This first part of the passage is really just focusing on the problem and how we can see that there is a problem. The problem isn't with others. It's not about them. Others don't deserve the quarrels and fights that we're bringing on them. The problem in this text starts with our heart. Our values are off. It points out jealousy, coveting, motives, and probably a lifestyle led by instant gratification. I mean, the notion about that search for personal pleasure makes a lot of sense to me if we're talking about some kind of instant gratification. So it's very unwise. It's an unwise way to live. Values are off. But this text isn't about wisdom. It's about the heart. It's about our values. There's something so incredibly wrong with the heart in this passage that God's not even considering any prayer requests. Okay, that's a big deal. It's not about behavior. It's about the heart. Not only is there no instinct to talk to God, but when there's some kind of talking to God, it's the kind of communication that God really is not into. This text shows us that there's no loving others because we're missing an issue in our heart, at our core, our purpose, the big choice that we make for our life. Now, I'm not really sure how to communicate that it's a problem with our heart, because sometimes when I say it's a problem with our heart, some people jump to emotions. I'm not talking about emotions at all. It's the inner thing that's inside of us where our choices and commitment and our identity lies. It's our will. It's our very being. Whatever's at our core. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the problem. The text seems to be pointing to an issue of our core self, where we make our choices and our commitments and our allegiances and where our values lie. Because there's something wrong inside there, a connection is made about friendship. It's basically saying that our friendships are off, our connections are off. We're trying to create relationships with things that are going to hurt us. And that would be those things that we're pursuing because our values are wrong. A significant relationship is missing, so our whole life is off. So to fix our life, we need to fix that relationship at our core. When Jesus told us the greatest commandment, he said, love God and love others. So let's look at the first thing he tells us, and that is to love God, which is really, now this is at the core of our being. Text says friendship with the world makes you an enemy of God. This is really about a choice, of course. The choice is about what or who we will follow, what or who we will choose to value. More specifically, I think it's about who you want to love or what you want to love. And unfortunately, it's kind of a yes or no. It is an all or nothing. There are only two options, but the option isn't this or that. The option is yes or no. Will we say yes to Jesus or will we say no to Jesus? Yes to Jesus doesn't mean we reject everything and everyone around us. That's what's going on here. It means that our first love is God. Our purpose and our lifestyle and our pursuits will be informed by our first love, which is God. The first love motivates us to do things that will benefit our relationship with God and also increase our relationships with the others around us. If our first choice is not to love Jesus, then that's the problem this text is pointing to. Without that first choice to love Jesus, our values are off and we begin to treat each other badly. And the text calls that friendship with the world. It's the opposite of whatever it means to hold God as our value. Friendship with God, love for God, faith in God, commitment to follow him. And here's where the idea of the world comes from. If our choice is to reject Jesus, then the idea progresses into creating another entity that we follow, and the text calls it the world, which is really, it's not an entity, it's part of the author's point. Follow and love Jesus, and the things around us are probably going to be okay for us because we're not relying on them for eternity and relationship. However, choose not to follow Jesus. Then we're left with this problem where we no longer experience this world as good, but we're elevating it to become bigger, a much bigger deal than God, and we're allowing our heart to lead us into it in a way that decreases our love for others, and we self-sabotage as we pursue this world, the stuff around us, this creation, as the greatest thing there is, and we covet it. And there's no filter now because you take God out of the equation. Okay, maybe this is a good place to pause and try to get an application here. What's at stake is our choice. Will we choose Jesus as our first choice? Will we choose to see God as our greatest treasure? Will we choose to let every other part of us be informed by our core aspiration of being at peace with God? Or more simply, as Jesus gave it to us, will we choose to love God first so that then we can love others? That's what's at the core of this text, in my opinion. Well, that's what I came up with. Anyways, I'm looking forward to hear what you came up with so we can all talk about it this coming Sunday. That's it from me to you for now. Would you please like? Would you please share? Would you please subscribe? Would you please ask for the link? We meet 2 times on Sunday, once at 10:30 a.m., once at 6 o'clock p.m., and the one at 6 o'clock p.m. are just for men. For community, creating community spaces so you can connect with others and also with God. See you next time.